Hello, everyone, and welcome to Education USA Week 2021. This week, our team at Mission Japan has a single goal: to help you achieve your dream of studying in the United States. Throughout the week, we will be holding seminars to explain the many important study abroad topics. This is the time for you to ask your questions. Our Education USA advisors are standing by to help you discover all of the options available for you to study in the United States. As Secretary Antony Blinken said about international education, by studying abroad, you are making a tremendous contribution to fortifying the strength of our relationship and ensuring it endures for generations to come. I would add that this is especially true of the US-Japan relationship, which has deepened over the years because of students like you who have pursued study abroad in the United States. I hope you make the most of Education USA Week. Good luck as you take your first steps in your US study abroad adventure. Thank you and enjoy.
EducationUSA is a U.S. Department of State network of advising centers in more than 117 countries around the world. We promote studying in the United States by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about U.S. colleges and universities. In Japan, we have 6 EducationUSA centers: Sapporo, Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Fukuoka, and Okinawa, which are run by U.S. Embassy, consulates, and Fulbright Japan. If you have any questions, please contact EducationUSA nearby. During the EducationUSA week, we have webinars on studying in the United States every day. On Friday, we have a virtual U.S. college fair with more than 50 colleges and universities, as well as scholarship organizations and English test organizations. For more information, please see our website, which is shared in the chat box. Now, I'd like to welcome our guest speakers from the United States. Ms. Meredith Lombardi from the Common Application and Ms. Christine Crosby from Ohio Wesleyan University. Meredith and Christine, I'm passing over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Yukiko. I know we're recording, but I have to ask whether my Common App image is reversed or not. Is it okay, Kristen? Excellent. So welcome, everyone. I am going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Once I find it. Okay, and can you confirm that you can see the slides okay? Excellent. Well, thank you again. Thank you, EducationUSA Japan, for hosting us today. My name is Meredith Lombardi, and I am the Associate Director of Outreach and Education at Common App. And I am here as a representative of the organization to help you understand about navigating the application. Kristen?
Ohayo gozaimasu. I'm Kristen Crosby, and I am the Director of International Admission at Ohio Wesleyan. I have over 20 years of experience in international admissions, and I've been traveling to Japan for over 20 years as well. So I wish I could be there. And that's one of the phrases I know, and it has the word Ohio in it, at least to my ear. So I'm excited to be with you all tonight, and we're very lucky to have Meredith from the Common App. And I'm going to turn off my video so that Meredith can go on with the presentation.
Excellent. So what we're going to do today, we'll give a quick overview of the Common App community and why you may want to use the Common App when applying to universities. Kristen will do an overview of Ohio Wesleyan. Then we'll walk through different parts of the application and talk about certain parts and how you might approach parts of the application with some tips from Kristen, connect you with tools, and then at the end, get to any questions that you have. Again, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, and at the end, we will make sure to get through them. So in terms of who we are as an organization, Common App is a nonprofit membership organization. So our organization started over 40 years ago in 1975 when there were 15 member institutions. And that has grown now to over 950 colleges and universities, not only in the US, but also around the world. And what we do is we help students apply to college in a more streamlined and simple way. So you're able to access a single platform where you can explore these over 900 colleges and then choose where you would want to apply and do that all from within one platform. So again, we talk about it in terms of members because the colleges choose to be members of Common App. So we have over 950 colleges or universities that are members of Common App. They are in all 50 US states, plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And we also have 60 international members in 19 countries outside the US, including 2, I believe, in Japan. The image you're seeing here is a copy of the map that actually shows where all of the different institutions are. One big thing to note is that Common App, while it has over 900 member institutions, not every college and university is on the Common App. So when you are thinking about where to apply, it's just worth noting that you will find sometimes you're applying to schools that are part of Common App, and then you may be applying to schools that are not on the Common App. Thinking about the fact that our membership grows every year, even this year when the application launched on August 1st, we had over 50 new colleges and universities join our membership. So those institutions are in 18 different states. We also have a few new international members. And if you have been thinking about studying in the state of Illinois, we did pick up all of the public institutions in the state, which are now part of Common App's membership. There's a link here, and you'll also get a link to the blog if you have access later to these slides that takes you to the new member announcement that will list out all of the new member institutions this year. Common App, your journey with us really starts on our website, commonapp.org. At the minimum, if you want to find out which schools are on the Common App, you can go to the Find a College section, which is also called Explore Colleges. There you can use different filters to find institutions. So you can search by a school name. You can look for filters like offers financial aid for international students, or if you're looking for a school based on whether it's near a city or not near a city, the size of the campus, lots of different filters you can use. You can look at them in map view because we know that the United States is a very large country. And if you want to be able to find schools in certain parts of the country, you can do that. There's also a test optional filter that you can find. You know, the majority of Common App member schools are test optional because of COVID-19, but many were test optional even prior to COVID-19. Again, we are not all colleges and universities, so I just wanted to highlight the link fairtest.org, where you can go and you can actually find test optional policies specific for international students. Kristen, was there anything that you wanted to add about test optional? I think you're on mute.
Thank you. There's a delay when I try to put my video on. I would just mention that test optional is truly test optional. So we don't make any assumptions as to why or why not you might not be submitting testing. It is just one extra piece of information that we have if you choose to submit testing. I would also echo that fairtest.org is a great website. And not only will it tell you which schools are test optional, but it will also give you all the requirements for schools that do require testing. And oftentimes, if you are choosing to apply somewhere that's test optional, it doesn't mean that you have to submit anything extra or in place of the testing, or that you'll be at any kind of disadvantage at all.
Great, thank you. Another part of the Explore Colleges page is where you can actually learn about the different member institutions. So here's Ohio Wesleyan University's page, where the university is providing some information about themselves. There are tags for different aspects and attributes of the schools. You can learn about different academic programs. You can look at virtual tours. So there's tours for most of the campuses that are part of Common App's membership. You can look at image galleries of schools. So lots of ways for you to get to know the schools just by going to the commonapp.org website. That's just showing you some of those academic program highlights and student experiences. And with that, I would like to just pass it over to Kristen to talk a little bit more about Ohio Wesleyan.
You'd think I would learn that I have to unmute myself. I've done about hundreds of webinars, but sometimes I still forget. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about Ohio Wesleyan. It is a small, private, residential liberal arts and sciences university. By residential, that means that we guarantee housing for all of our students, international students, and even our students who live close by, and it's guaranteed all 4 years. We have about 1,500 students, and it's a small but very vibrant and thriving community. And we're located in a small city, a small safe city in Delaware, Ohio, but we're very close to a large city. We're close to Columbus, which is the 15th largest city in the United States. And you can see here's a picture of Columbus here. Next slide, please. So all of our classes at Ohio Wesleyan are taught only by professors. And that might sound like I'm stating the obvious, but actually at many large universities, research universities, even some medium-sized universities, there could be graduate students teaching you. But at a small university the size of Ohio Wesleyan and other liberal arts and sciences colleges, your classes are taught only by professors who are experts in their field. They choose teaching as their priority, and they really love working directly with students and mentoring them. Our student faculty ratio is 10-1. So that means your professors will really get to know you and will be there to provide all kinds of great advice to you. We have over 70 majors, from accounting to zoology. Some of our more popular majors include computer science, business, finance and economics, health and human kinetics, biology, and other pre-professional programs, politics and government. So with over 70 majors, there's bound to be something for just about everyone. And about a third of our students choose to double major. When you double major, that doesn't mean that you're taking longer to graduate or complete your courses. It doesn't cost extra. It doesn't take extra time. It just means that you're choosing out of your 4 years of classes to devote more of your time to 2 subjects as opposed to having more elective or free choice classes. One thing that's special about Ohio Wesleyan are all of our opportunities for students to do research or internships. In fact, we guarantee those opportunities to all of our students, and we have funding to help cover the cost of travel and living expenses and supplies for summer research and internships. Next slide, please. So what's special about our curriculum is our ability to really provide hands-on learning and learning that connects your educational experience to the real world. So our curriculum is called the OU Connection. We want you to connect your learning to real world experiences, and you'll do that by thinking big. So you can think of that in terms of research opportunities, but also in terms of interdisciplinary classes. So classes that kind of connect one subject to another. So this picture here is actually a class that is team taught by a math professor and a biology professor. And you can see students are working directly with professors. They're in a lab. They have state-of-the-art instrumentation. We also want our students to go global or develop global perspectives, and that could be by studying abroad or taking a travel learning course, such as the one pictured in the middle here. The students spent their semester at Ohio Wesleyan, but then when the semester ended, they traveled with their class, their professors, to the Galapagos Islands. So for 3 weeks, they traveled around the islands and they got to do all kinds of field research on marine wildlife and marine biology. And then we also want our students to get real with real world practical experiences. And that could be summer internships. It could be internships during the academic year, but we also have some semester-long internships and apprenticeships. So this is a picture of our Washington, Wesleyan in Washington program. Students can spend a whole semester in Washington, D.C. if they're interested in politics, government, and law. We also have a fine and performing arts semester of apprenticeships in New York City, and business and finance program in Philadelphia. So it's a really hands-on kind of learning. Next slide, please. In terms of applying to Ohio Wesleyan, if you're at the stage of considering starting an application, of course, the Common Application is a great way to go. We do accept the Common Application. We also have one that you can click on to our website, but it really does not matter which one you choose. And, you know, my personal opinion, working with international students, I think the Common Application gives us so much information. So I'm a little bit partial to that, but it's either way, you can choose either one, and it's free to apply. We are test optional, and every student who applies is automatically considered for merit scholarships. And the average award for international students is $32,000 per year. So there's nothing extra you need to do to be considered for that. We do have early decision, which is binding. It means you have to choose to enroll if you apply early decision. We have early action, which is not binding. So it gives you opportunities to apply to many schools. And we have regular decision, and that's March 1. But no matter which plan you choose to apply under, you'll receive a decision within about 2 or 3 weeks once your application is complete. And then for students who are ready to commit, we have a quick processing of I-20s. Usually within about a week to 10 days, we get those I-20s to students. And I know some of you have opted to share your information, so I'll be in touch with you that way. But if anybody would like to scan the QR code here to get on our mailing list or learn more about Ohio Wesleyan, feel free. And with that, I will turn it back over to Meredith.
Thank you. And I think I realized that I was not on mute that whole time, but maybe that was just saving myself so that I would not forget to press unmute for this part of the presentation. So I think it's really helpful for you to get the perspective of a member institution in terms of just what they can offer, and recognizing that that's just part of the diversity of Common App's membership. What I'm going to take you through these next several minutes is what you need to know to complete the application. So I mentioned earlier that you'll start with the commonapp.org website. There's 2 places where you can go to create your account or to log in. There's create an account, and then there's apply now. And there's also that login button. So we try to give you multiple places, but they all take you to the actual application. Something I also wanted to note is that Common App is a web-based application, but we also do have a mobile app that was new this past year in November. So if you do have an iPhone or a Google phone and you want to download the Common App, it's called Common App, and you can actually complete your application on the app. It doesn't matter. You can go from using your computer and being on the Common App website to going to the mobile app, to going to an iPad, laptop. You can jump around. The application itself on the web-based platform is mobile friendly, and we know many students do submit through their mobile devices, but I just wanted to make you aware of the fact that there are different ways for you to access the application. Something else that's worth noting is some of you may be applying for university this year, and some of you may be thinking about applying a year from now or 2 years from now, and that's okay. Common App has a feature called account rollover, which means you can create your account at any time, and we will roll that information over from year to year. So Common App launches for a new admission cycle every year on August 1st, but you don't have to wait until then in terms of creating your account. So we'll keep your username and password. We will roll over any colleges that you put on your list, and then any answers that you put in the main part of the application, which we're going to walk through. What we do not roll over are any college-specific questions or any recommender invitations. So any invitations that would be for a teacher or a counselor, we would not roll that information over. So here I am, I've jumped into the actual application and what you can expect to see. There are 5 tabs at the top. I'm starting on the college search tab because this is where you would go to actually add schools to your list. So the 950 plus schools are not automatically added to your list. You can choose which ones you would want to apply to. Now, our system does have a maximum of 20 schools that you can add in the Common App. I can tell you that the average that students apply to through Common App is around 6. So we do not see students maxing out at 20. It's less than 1% of students. But I did want you to be aware of that maximum that the system puts on there. There are filters that you can use if you're looking for schools but don't know which ones. You can find filters based on location, based on fees. So here's an example. There's a filter for when there's no fee for international applicants. Kristen mentioned how Ohio Wesleyan has no application fee. You can look at writing requirements, testing requirements. So lots of different filter options. You'll also find in here the requirements grid. And this is where you will be able to see every university, what their different deadlines are, how much it costs to apply to them, how many letters of recommendation they may need, testing policies, all of that is available there in the application requirements. Kristen.
All right, so just a couple tips I wanted to give. It can be overwhelming, maybe even a little bit confusing to go through the application process, especially when you figure in that you might not just be doing Common Application, but Coalition or California or lots of other different applications. So you want to be as organized as possible right from the get-go. So I recommend that you create an email address which you use only for college-related communications. That way, you know that whenever you check it, everything in there will be related to the college application process, and nothing related to your college application process will get lost. And some tips for creating that email. It would be a good idea if it has your name in it. And the next one might sound a little silly, that it's appropriate language. But oftentimes students will sign up with their regular old email and it has some words in it that, you know, I think, really? That's that's what you're using for your email. So it's always a good idea to maybe have your name in it and have appropriate language. You definitely want to check that account every few days. So don't just let that email pile up and check it once a month. That will feel overwhelming. Keep on top of it, check it every few days, because you're going to get notifications from colleges and universities about what is still missing from your application and how to submit it. You'll also possibly hear from colleges about scholarship competitions or other ways to get to know the university, like virtual programs, webinars, live tours, chats with students and professors. You might even hear directly from professors with information on the major that you're interested in. You might feel overwhelmed by the amount of email that you get. Try not to get overwhelmed. And a good rule of thumb is, if you're not going to end up applying to some of the universities that you sign up to get information from, you can always just unsubscribe and remove yourself from those mailing lists so that you won't have as much email. Thanks.
Thank you. Don't go too far because you're coming back on soon. So this is a good time to kind of explain how the fees work for Common App. Common App as a platform is free to use. Each college decides whether they're going to charge an application fee, and what that fee may be differs by college. So some will have no fee. You can see here over 400 Common App schools do not charge an application fee. Others may charge $30, $50, $70 US dollars, $100 US dollars. So it really varies, but it's something that you will have to factor in when you're looking at the schools that you are applying to. Common App does have a fee waiver request process that you can access. And you will see this when you're in the profile section of the application. Some examples are based on, if you get a fee waiver for a test, or you participate in a program for lower income individuals, if you get public assistance, or even if you can provide a supporting statement. Now, I will say it is a little more challenging for international students, as the eligibility criteria are really geared towards US students. So I would just recommend that if you believe you qualify and you want to request a waiver, that you check in with any of the colleges that you're applying to in advance, so that you are not surprised, and just you get that assurance at the beginning of the process that they will grant you that fee waiver. Is there anything that you would add about that, Kristen? Again, I know that you all don't charge a fee, so that's not an issue. Nope.
Can't think of anything.
Okay. So here's the view of what the Common App tab looks like. And this is, again, all of the main parts of the application that are not specific to any college or university. You are sharing basic demographic information about yourself, about your family, your education, any testing information you want to share, activities that you want to highlight, writing, and then courses and grades. And we are going to go into several of these sections in more detail. We do have embedded FAQs throughout the application, so that if you have a question, there's a good chance someone else has had that question as well, and we try and support you through our support team. We're also, the support team is available 24/7. So again, we're in all different time zones, but no matter what time you're working in the application, if you are having a challenge or need some help, you can always connect with someone in our support team and they will get back to you right away. Kristen.
All right, a few more tips. It's a good idea to keep track of various application requirements. And the reason is that even though the Common Application makes it very easy to apply to many universities with one application, there could be many differences between each university's requirements. So we all might have slightly different deadlines. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of each university's deadline. Application fees, some might charge, others might not. Testing requirements. And I mentioned in terms of testing requirements, some colleges and universities will allow you to simply type in your test scores into the Common Application and will accept those test scores. We call that self-reported. You're reporting your test scores. Some other colleges or universities might want you to follow up and send official scores, meaning that you would need to contact the college board or ACT to have your score report sent to the institution. So you want to keep track of those testing requirements as well. And fairtest.org that Meredith mentioned earlier is another great way to keep track of the testing. One other tip that I would mention, because for international students, sometimes you might have a first name before the last name or the last name before the first name. Anyway, whatever your name is as it appears in your passport should be how you sign into the Common Application. And then if there are other applications, such as the financial aid form or other documents that you're requesting, SAT scores, IELTS or TOEFL, hopefully your name is consistent on all of those documents. And if it's not the same on one of those documents, you might want to email the admission offices and say, oh, by the way, my SAT scores might come in and they're with this name, and explain why. And then I'll also mention that sometimes students say, what's a nickname? What's a preferred name? Or they just put something funny in there, but know that many colleges will email you with that nickname. So if you're putting just a funny name in there kind of as a joke, that is how you will often be greeted in your email. And I also mention that because if there are any of you that are consider yourself gender fluid, but maybe your parents aren't aware of that, your emails will often come with your preferred nickname. All right.
Another best practice or something for you to recognize about the Common App is that not all questions are required. This can feel like a lot to navigate because you want to answer every question, but it's important to note that not every question applies to you when you're applying. So a good example of this that we hear a lot from students outside of the United States is about class rank and GPA or grade point average. Class rank is if you receive a number in comparison to the other students in your class. And the grade point average is something that's a common number that students in the United States receive with on part of their transcript. Again, if you do not have a numerical number that your school gives you, you are not expected to calculate a number. So you do not have to worry about that. There is this is an example of one of our FAQs that we have where it says, if you don't have school rank or you're not ranked, you can select none. If you don't have a GPA, you can leave it blank. You do not have to calculate it. And you'll also notice that those questions do not have red asterisks, which means they are not required questions. So this is one part of the application, but it's just a good thing to note throughout the application that you are not required to answer optional questions. And then Kristen.
Yeah, so I'm just going to reiterate what Meredith said. If your school doesn't have a rank, don't worry, we can read applications without a rank and you can simply select none, so don't worry about it. You also might worry, well, what if I don't have a GPA? You don't know what your grade point average is or how to calculate it. Don't worry, just leave it blank because we international admission officers are very familiar with many different grading scales from around the world. If there's one that we're not familiar with, we have a little website that we can go and check it. So don't worry about that. And if you're worried that your grading scale is different from, what is a typical American grading scale, don't worry. We're familiar with many grading scales. I'm familiar with the Japanese grading scale, so no need to worry about it. And then there's a question about weighted versus unweighted GPAs. Again, I'm just going to say, don't worry about it. If you aren't familiar with it, it doesn't apply to you. So you can leave that one blank. It just means that some schools that have honors or AP or IB classes add extra points or weighting to a GPA. But I just want to provide some reassurance that when we're reading applications, we are just reading you within what your school has to offer. We're not comparing you to other students from IB programs or AP programs or other countries or even other schools within your city or country. We're just reading your application in the context of what is available to you at your school.
Thank you. I wanted to call out in the application that within the education section, there's a section called community-based organizations. And this is where you can highlight if you've worked with any organizations like EducationUSA that have provided you with some free assistance in helping you with the application. You can list up to 3 organizations, and this is just a way for the colleges to know that you're receiving assistance in a positive way from organizations, again, in your area. The activities section, we know that there's a good number of questions here, so we'll spend a bit of time here just kind of walking through what you need to know here. This is your way to talk to colleges about how you spend your time outside of the classroom. You have the option to list up to 10 activities or experiences. You do not have to use all 10 spots. The average, again, for Common App is around 5. When you think about activities, you should think broadly. You'll notice here we give examples of some categories, which include things like hobbies and family responsibilities and work, community engagement. So it's not necessarily an organized sport or club that you may participate in, but just a way for you to, again, let colleges know a little bit more about who you are as an individual. You will have to discuss and provide brief information, and there are character limits. So this part gets a little tricky in terms of talking about your activity, very limited space of where you can describe it, and then average time spent on these activities. And the purpose there is not for you to calculate the exact number of hours spent in an activity, but to give a general sense to college reading your application. Is this something you do for the entire year? Is it for part of the year? Is it something that you did one weekend, but it really had an impact on you? So they're just trying to get to know you again better with learning about some of these time spent.
I would just have to echo what Meredith had to say. You don't need to fill out all 10 spaces. And if you're having a hard time trying to figure out what to put in those activity boxes, choose what's really important to you. Think about what has made you who you are today. One thing I will say, sometimes I read applications and students have left that section completely blank. They haven't listed one activity. And I'm sure there's something that everybody could put down. So don't leave it blank and don't rush through it. Take your time, and it can be time consuming, but we really love to know more about you, and the activity section kind of brings your application to life. And don't try too hard to impress, either with language that isn't true to you or maybe a sort of bragging. Because it's not about beating out the competition. It's not a contest. It's truly a way for us to get to know you beyond test scores, and grades. And as Meredith mentioned, there are word limits and character limits, so you don't have to use complete sentences. You can use incomplete sentences. So why do we ask for your activities? As we've said, it really gives us a chance to get to know you and bring your application to life. But it also gives you a chance to elaborate on things that you have spent your free time on, not just your studying and your grades and going to school, but what you've done during the summertime. If you had a job to earn money, or a job because you wanted to have that independence. If you've had an opportunity to hone leadership skills or a talent, if you've received awards, if there's any special involvement that you did, if you were involved in community service, special recognition, whatever you think is important to you and you're proud of, we would love to know about that. And it really does bring your application to life. It also is a chance for you to decide how you want us to see you in your application, because you don't have control over what your teachers write in your recommendations. You've already earned your grades, but you have control over the activity section, so you can kind of shape who you want us to see in you. And it also helps us in building our class, our first year student classes and our transfer student classes. It's always great to have athletes and artists and musicians, leaders, students involved in the chess team or fencing. We'd like to have really well-rounded classes. So it helps us in building our community. And it's also a great way for us to match you to professors or current students, in case we want to put you in touch with a professor or student who can give you more information on a particular major or club or program or activity. So sometimes I use that information and I will reach out to a professor and say, hey, I'd love it if you could email this student who has expressed interest in the mock trial team. So I just want to also mention that it's really not about a contest or a competition to get in. We're not tallying up all of your experiences, keeping track of leadership, talents, art, sports, community service, etc. We're not keeping track of those things in that way. And we also don't compare your activity list with another student's list and say, all right, which student am I going to accept? This one has a longer list of activities. So we're not comparing students' activities lists like that. We're really more concerned with what you've done and the time commitment rather than the amount of activities. So it's really how you've spent your time, what you've done, and not about how many activities you've filled your time with. And don't get involved in an activity just because you think it will look good on your college application. Really should just focus on things that you love to do, that you're excited about, and that you're interested in spending your free time doing that. And again, you don't need to fill out all 10 spaces.
Couldn't find my buttons there. I know that we are approaching time, and I do want to make sure we get to the Q&A. So Kristen and I will do our best to kind of speed up our the content that we share with you. But this has been, so helpful for us to be able to chat together to give you these pieces of our tips, so I hope it's, that what we're sharing is helpful and hopefully has answered some of the questions that have already come in. But we'll just take a few more minutes to get through the rest of the content here. Did want to make sure that you know that there is a COVID-19 question in the application. It's actually called a community disruption question because it approaches COVID-19, but also expands to things like natural disasters or anything that has had a large impact on a community. This is not an essay, it is optional. We saw around 1 out of 3 students answer this question in the application this past year. It is, again, not essay length, it's 250 words, but it is a space for you if you need it to talk about the impact of COVID-19 or any other disruption on you. A school official who's completing forms for you is also asked a similar question to talk about the impact to the entire school. So not just impact to you, but how your school may have been affected. In terms of the essay, so I talked about the writing section, you have the option to choose from 7 different prompts to answer to do a writing question. 650 word limit for your essay. There's 6 topics that are, guided topics, and then there's a 7th one that is a topic of your choice. If you have a Gmail account or use Google Drive, Common App is integrated with Google Drive, so you can grab content from there to pull into your application. For you all, as you get in there this year, you will notice that there is a new essay prompt that explicitly asks about the impact of gratitude on you. Kristen, do you want to jump in here?
Sure. I'm just going to very briefly say a few tips on writing the essay, because I'm sure that there are whole webinars that you'll find devoted to writing the essay. But I would just say, number 1, don't be tempted to try to insert the name of a university into your essay. It usually backfires, and I read each week somebody's essay with another university's name mentioned in it. So if you can avoid that, you should. Don't worry about being unique. As long as you choose a topic that you want to write about, that you're excited to write about and means something to you, and you use language that you would typically use, and you kind of find a way to represent yourself, your voice, and you're true to yourself, you will be unique. That's it.
Excellent. So here I'm just showing you what the My Colleges tab looks like. This is where you actually apply to the individual schools on your list. It's accordion style, so you expand when you want to answer the questions that are specific to whatever university you are interested in applying to. You submit on this tab, you pay a fee if there is a fee on this tab. If there's any additional writing requirements, that gets submitted here as well. And this is also where you invite your recommenders. So I just want to kind of talk through the different recommender types. There's one that's called a counselor, which is a school official. It might be for you a principal, it might be a teacher. It's someone who has access to your academic records that would be able to send those to the colleges. Some of our members also ask for a counselor letter of recommendation. Then there's the teacher recommender. This is, again, not all schools require it. You can see here about 1 in 3 require a letter, but this is someone who has taught you in an academic area that can talk about you as a student. There's an optional other recommender, and then there's an advisor. So advisor is someone who is not submitting any forms for you, but someone you may be working with for additional support, who you can share just your in-progress application with. So why a school may ask for a letter of recommendation from a teacher is to really get to know you better, to have someone else talk about you in a positive way, and to let a college know about your academic potential and how you might be a good fit for a university community. Kristen, is there anything that you would add here about how teacher letters of recommendation can be helpful?
It's important that you choose a teacher who you feel knows you the best, because really even if it's just a very brief recommendation, even if it's just a paragraph, if they can give us some context of what you're like in the classroom, what kind of student you are, and maybe share a couple of anecdotes about what kind of student you are, it can be very helpful. So oftentimes, teachers in other countries aren't used to writing recommendations for American applications. So it's certainly fine to reach out to an admission officer and ask advice. But really, it's just intended for us to get an idea of what you're like in the classroom, what kind of qualities you have as a student, how hardworking you are, or other qualities like that. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Great. And so you're aware what happens is when you invite a teacher or counselor, an email gets sent to them to then activate their account in Common App's recommender system. And so this is oftentimes where your teachers may ask you questions, or your principal or counselor, because they are then logging into another system to submit these forms on your behalf. We do have guides for counselors and teachers and recommenders. They can access those guides by going to commonapp.org/advisors. We're going to get to the Q&A. So I'm going to make sure that you get these tools. They are on our website. I mentioned our 24/7 support. We also are connected with Reach Higher. And so if you're on social media, we'd love to see you join us and follow us on social media. If you're looking for tips as far as approaching the application, we share a lot of information out on our social media accounts. And this is even an old slide because we're also on TikTok. So if you do have TikTok there, we also have TikTok. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Again, I know that we don't have that much time, but we want to get to any questions that we have not already answered as part of the presentation.
I'm going to look in the Q&A and let's see. There was a question about how to get fee waivers. Meredith, do you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. So the first thing I would say is when you're in the Common App, take a look at the eligibility criteria that's already listed there and see if you think that you meet one of those criteria. And if you think you do, or even if you think you do, but it's not listed there, reach out to a college, reach out to the International Admissions Office and just ask if they grant fee waivers. And that, again, within our system, it's just a matter of requesting it there. But if you want to make sure that they will award it to you as a student coming from Japan, it would be good to at least check with the college in advance.
Great.
Kristen, I saw a question about middle school activities and whether or not to include those in the application.
Well, that is a good question. Typically, students are just reporting their activities from high school, but sometimes if a student has been doing an activity since before high school and throughout high school, let's say you've played an instrument since you were 4, or you've participated very actively in a sport since you were 7, you can list a few highlights from middle school, but primarily we want to see what you've been doing during these high school years. So from your 9th grade to your 12th grade years.
I see a question about the COVID-19 question and whether it's negative or something personal. So I would say that no, it should not be about any, it doesn't have to be about a negative impact. again, Kristen, I would love to just kind of get your perspective on, from what you saw from students, what was some helpful information that did come through if students answered that question?
Sure. So the first thing I'm going to remind everybody is that the COVID-19 essay, the community disruption essay, is optional. So don't feel like you have to type something in there just to have something else to write about. And I advise students that if you really did feel some severe kind of disruption, whether it was a friend or family illness because of COVID, or maybe a job loss, or you really struggled with anxiety or depression because of learning over Zoom, or maybe your family was hit hard really financially. Whatever way that your life might have been disrupted, that would be what the content of the COVID-19 essay is for. And so therefore, if it was negative to you, it's absolutely fine to write about that negative experience. On the flip side, if your experience during the pandemic was really not that negatively affected, you managed just fine, you didn't have any setbacks, don't feel like you have to come up with something just because you want to fill that section. So if it's a curious observation, could write about that, but it's not necessary for that section. Meredith, I see this question about, are schools that require the supplemental essay declining? Most of the students' preferred schools don't require them. I'm curious about that too.
I'm curious as well. And I don't know that we have looked at it recently. So I'm not sure, but I hope for you, the student who is looking at these schools, that means less writing for you, which is a positive. What I will say, it's a good opportunity to mention that Common App has a resource that you all can access that I'll put the link to. It's actually through App Support website. It's called our Writing Requirements Resource. And you can look up any college and see what their actual writing questions are, not just whether or not they require the Common App personal essay, but also if they have an additional writing prompt as part of their college specific questions, or if they have a separate writing prompt, that's a separate writing supplement. And so I definitely would encourage you to check out that resource. I'll put that in the chat.
And from my perspective, I used to work at a university that had a supplement, and when students forgot to submit it, maybe they didn't know that there was a supplement, their application would be considered incomplete. And so we wouldn't be able to read their application until that supplement was submitted. So maybe more universities and colleges have figured out that it can be an extra barrier to students to require the supplement. And I think that the ones that still do require that supplement, it's because there's something so particular to their college or university that they feel they need to get across to you or need information from you. That's why they require it. There is a question about Coalition and Common App, and I don't feel like I'm able to answer that because we're not a Coalition app school.
Yeah, I would just answer that there are different ways that students have to apply to schools. And you're going to find, just like Kristen mentioned, that Ohio Wesleyan accepts the Common App as well as their own, what we would say, institutional app. There are other schools that give you options. So they might say, we accept the Common App, or we accept the Coalition app, or we accept our own application. So for you, it's just a matter of finding the schools that you want to apply to, then looking at the different platforms that they may accept and seeing what makes the most sense for you. As Kristen mentioned again earlier, for the institution, they don't have a preference in terms of how you apply. they're going to treat your application fairly and equally. They're getting the same information regardless of what platform you apply through. For us with Common App, we want to be able to give you the opportunity to put your information in one time to submit to multiple schools. So Common App has over 900 colleges on it. Coalition does not have that same number of schools. So oftentimes, if you apply through Coalition, you're also going to have to do Common App and possibly another application platform. So just find, what works best for you in terms of the schools that you are interested in applying to. I hope that helps. There was a question here about, does Common App have a way to filter colleges based on departments, such as areas of study that the university offers? It's a great question. At this time, Common App does not offer that type of search function. I would say, one of the bigger search ones here, and Kristen, feel free to share others, but College Board has the Big Future website, and Big Future is a way that you can search for schools based on the different majors that they offer.
I would just say that your college search shouldn't necessarily begin with the Common Application. By the time you get to the Common Application and you sit down to fill it out, you want to have done a lot of research and narrowed down from a really broad list of schools that you're somewhat interested in knowing more about to ones that you're sure that you are excited about applying. So it's important to do all of that research if it's based on, if your choice is based on a certain major or program, then you want to do that through the College Board, Fisc Guide, your EducationUSA office. They are a great resource for the college search. And I'm sure there's lots of other ones that I'm forgetting. So you want to do all that research first and then get ready to apply. Oh, here's a question about a student who heard from somebody that they should make an individual essay for each college. Can you submit an individual essay for each college, or do you not recommend it? And I would say, well, the beauty of the Common Application is that you only have to do one essay. And there are really some fascinating questions to choose from. So I would say save yourself the time. That's why we've signed up to be part of the Common Application, because we like the questions that are posed. And your essay doesn't have to be unique to my institution. I want to learn about you. I don't need to learn more about my institution. So just focus on doing one essay. Besides, if you focus on doing one essay, you'll probably do a better job on it. And don't worry about writing a separate essay for each college that you're applying to, as long as they're all Common App schools.
Fun fact, Kristen, when I applied to college, I definitely did do some of the name switching in the essays, and I can guarantee that one of the wrong names went to one of the colleges that I applied to. So yes, students, try not to do that. Colleges that are on Common App, they are expecting you to do the Common App essay that's not tailored to their specific institution. And if they want one that is more of the, why are you interested in this particular major at our school, they're going to ask you a separate question as part of their own writing supplements.
I'll just add that there is a great section on the Common Application. We see it as additional information. And Meredith, what is the
It's same. It's called same. Mm-hmm.
So you can use that to write about anything at all. So if there's something that you're really passionate about that you want us to know about in addition to your essay, put it in additional information. If there's a subject that you really struggled with, you're just not good at, history, give us a little information in additional information. anything at all. If you want to write a poem, if you want to put in some YouTube links, if you have YouTube channels, you can put anything you want in additional information. A lot of students just kind of pass over that area, they leave it blank, but that's a great place. So that's another way we can learn about you.
Yeah, that's also a great highlight. Like when we were talking about the activity section, sometimes students feel that they can't fully describe the activity that they participated in because of those word limits in the activity section, but you can use that additional information question to go into more detail about a particular activity if that's something that you would like to do. There was a question about what are the things that the school counselor has to do for the students? So the school counselor's role is to help give context to the school community for the student that's applying, to let the college know more about the school itself. So that's one part. So there's something called a school profile where the counselor is sharing how many students attend the school, where do students go after they leave that high school, just to, what's the makeup of the student body. So there's just, where is the school located? Just different information about the school to give context for where you as a student, where you're coming from. Then the counselor is also the one who provides your academic record. You may call it a transcript, you may call it something else, but it's whatever the official document is that talks about the courses that you have taken and the grades that you have earned. So your counselor is the person who uploads or sends that document to the colleges and universities. And then there is also the letter of recommendation. So again, not all universities require a counselor letter, but for those that do, it's a way for that school official to provide context about you, not just in the classroom, but a broader picture. They may know more about you in terms of your growth over your time as a student at the school, or if you've transferred to their school and you have grades coming from another high school. So it's just to give context about you as an individual. That counselor is the one who's sharing that information. Is there anything you would add there, Kristen?
I think you did a great job with that. Yeah. Looks like there's just one other question about testing optional, and I'll weigh in a little bit on that. So there are many colleges and universities that either have been test optional for many years or decided to go test optional last year due to COVID. I think I heard a statistics that 60% of colleges and universities in the US are test optional. It means that if you feel like your standardized testing, your SAT or ACT don't represent you as a student, you don't have to submit them. Also, if you were unable to take those tests, maybe because of COVID, you don't have to worry about not having those test scores because it was very difficult for students to register and take those tests. And I've always worked for test optional colleges, and I truly feel that standardized testing does not necessarily present the best predictor of what you're going to be like as a student on our campus or how successful you're going to be. So there are so many other things that I look at that really indicate what kind of student you're going to be on our campus.
Meredith and Kristen, thank you very much for answering all the questions and your great presentation. Thank you everyone for submitting questions. I'll stop recording here.